Welcome back to 40 Minute Mentor, the podcast on a mission to raise aspirations and inspire the next generation of category defining founders, all in just 40 minutes. I'm sure many of you have started the year with lots of great intentions and resolutions for 2025. And if you're anything like me, you may have dropped the ball on some of them already. Well, it turns out we're not the only ones. Research shows that most of us drop our New Year's resolutions by the second Friday in January. So, as we're approaching the end of the month, we thought we'd put together this episode to help you stick to those healthy habits you may have started out with. In this special roundup episode, you'll hear the best tips and advice from a selection of our guests who really know a thing or two about looking after your body and mind. We have Dr. Rupy Aujla, founder of The Doctor's Kitchen, Rhiannon Lambert, leading nutritionist and best-selling author, Nikki Wicks, CEO of the global fitness brand The Body Coach, and Lottie Whyte, founder of Myomaster, a pioneer in recovery and wellness solutions. So whether you're looking to build a more balanced daily routine, find simple ways to boost your physical health, or adopt habits that nurture your mental well-being, this episode is packed with actionable insights to help you make positive changes that last. So grab a notebook, settle in, and get ready to be inspired by some of the most empowering voices in the health and well-being space. Let's dive in. We talked a lot about the Doctor's Kitchen, but we haven't actually properly explained for anyone that might not have heard of it before, what the business is today, how it helps people, and what our listeners could expect from downloading the app. And we're hoping that lots of people will become customers and consumers of the podcast too. So tell us all a bit more about it.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, we exist to help people eat well every day. We do this through 4 ways. We entice people with delicious recipes. We equip them with the skills and the knowledge to navigate what is quite a complicated food landscape. We educate them on the benefits of eating well and the nutritional knowledge, and we entertain them. We want to make this as joyful and as pleasurable as possible, because food, whilst it is functional, should also be joyful. It should be representative. It should be a way in which we share our culinary history. So we never want to forget that. And what we do is, we produce podcasts, we produce materials and newsletters, social media content, recipes, articles, all that good stuff. And our app, which is the latest sort of arm of the Doctor's Kitchen, which is separate in its entity as Doctor's Kitchen Digital, is a collection of recipes that you can filter according to health goals. It's sort of like your go-to food is medicine app. So you can filter according to your dietaries, allergens, health needs like mental well-being, skin health, etc., and auto-populate a meal plan for you and your family members, generating a shopping list that you can take to the supermarket. The future of the Doctor's Kitchen, for which we just finished our pre-seed raise for at the end of last year, is streamlining the shopping experience to make healthy eating as easy as it is to eat unwell. So right now I can go on my app and order a burger and it'll be delivered to me in 15 minutes. I want to be able to eat something as quickly and as cheaply that is actually supporting my health rather than at the detriment of it. And that's exactly what we're aiming to do with grocery integration, cloud kitchen integration, knowledge bank. So you could figure out, okay, what should I be eating for? Or I've got a celery and a pepper in my fridge. How can I make something that's going to help my health and is aligned to my health goals? So there's big ambition, which is why, we're just getting started when it comes to the Doctor's Kitchen and where we're going.
I love your big ambitions for it. I love the mission and the impact. I'm like, this is what I need. It's far too easy this bank holiday weekend to just go online and order some crap, which in the moment felt like the right thing to do, but actually, there's so much beautiful, healthier, enjoyable food out there. So love that. I know you started this off the back of helping effectively your patients, and then it's sort of grown from there, and you've clearly had a massive impact on so many people's lives. So do you mind sharing some of those good news stories, the benefits that people have reported back over the years about sort of adopting this sort of approach to nutrition and what impact that's had on their lives?
Yeah, I mean, there's a selection from patients that I've seen individually as well as people online. And if you look at the App Store reviews or any of the reviews that we've got on the podcast, you'll find a collection of stories ranging from arthritis and autoimmune conditions and how people have improved the management of them. We've had reversals of type 2 diabetes a number of times. Weight loss, even though we're not a weight loss app, people just seem to lose weight by eating better food. And that's why I'm a proponent of focusing on the quality of your food rather than an arbitrary measure of energy content like calories for your food. We've had random results of improving headaches, improving brain fog. I say random because there are a number of different causes and reasons as to why someone might be suffering with those symptoms. But when you just do the basics, your body knows what to do. You have a lot of innate wisdom. And if you feed your body the right fuel in the form of fiber, plenty of plants, lots of different colors, quality fats, mostly plant-based. I'm not a proponent for a purely vegan or vegetarian diet, even though I think it is very possible to thrive in those diets. It is something that we definitely encourage, and ensuring that you're getting enough protein as well from various sources, not necessarily all from meat sources, but from plant-based sources as well. Your body knows what to do with those incredible sources of fuel, and things just get better. In this second book that I wrote, Eat to Beat Illness, I wrote about each of these different medical specialties: skin health, cardiovascular health, menopausal health, all these different elements. And in the final chapter, I remember just writing, it's the same thing. Everything that you need to do is just held within those simple principles. But the difficulty is consistency. It's not about getting this magic prescription of specific foods. It's consistency. And that's why the app exists today, to try and tackle that real difficult problem of just maintaining the consistently eating well every day. That's the elephant in the room, unfortunately.
Building that habit.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. Yes, it so is. It's so, and this is definitely something that I wrestle with. I think on the whole, as a family, we eat pretty healthily, but I go through these sort of binges, and I kind of, if I'm really busy, or I think I tell myself I'm really busy, I just cut corners, and I just don't, and I really feel the impact of it when I'm not really being thoughtful about what I'm putting into my body. I really feel it. I feel much more lethargic. So I know these things, and this is why I just think you're amazing, because we need more people like you to kind of bang the drum, and apps like this that can help build that habit. Because I think once you've built it and you can stick to it, it really does make a difference. No, I love it. And look, you alluded to the kind of the evolution of the brand and the business, and you've obviously gone down the tech route, which will have hopefully massive scale and ultimately impact many more lives as a result. Got to ask you a few nutrition advice, if anything, just for myself, but also I know all our listeners. But before we come to that, just in terms of the highlights, the best bits of this journey you've been on, do you mind just sharing some of the moments that have made you most proud or had the biggest impact?
Yeah, honestly, it sounds cheesy, but growing a small young team has been one of the best highlights, getting positive feedback from my team members, seeing them develop, seeing them hit goals and successes. That honestly has been some of the best highlights. Externally, helping that number of people, whenever I get someone who's cooked a recipe from, whether it's a post on socials or one of my first cookbooks, still fills me with a lot of joy and pride. And because I know how much that recipe is going to help not just boost their confidence, but also boost their health as well, as small as it might seem. We're setting on journeys. And I think the realization that I've had that's sort of given me a lot of confidence in moving from a patient-facing type of doctor to an educational type of doctor, which is what I feel like I'm doing right now, is the realization that I can impact thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions, by just speaking to a mic or videoing what I'm doing in the kitchen. And that sets people on for a path of incredible health. Trying to mimic that in a clinic scenario where I'm seeing one person by one after the other is impossible. So the potential is huge. And that for me is a big realization. That is a huge highlight. And that's what sort of powers and fuels everything that we do in the doctor's kitchen right now. And it's something that I'm trying to instill into the team as well, that we practice medicine here. This is what we do. We don't just post recipes. We don't just post interesting content. We don't just create viral videos. We practice medicine here, because the content that we produce is going to affect someone else's life in a huge, huge way.
And that is the perfect segue to me asking you, what does a well-balanced diet look like? And what are the kind of the main effects of eating really well, but also not eating well, have on our health? Can we just, I guess, go back to basics for our audience who may or may not be struggling with this, but I think it's just really good to talk about.
Yeah. I'll give you the sort of general overview of the pattern of what you want to be looking for, and I'll give you a real practical takeaway. It's probably easiest that way. So, like I said earlier, you want to stick to whole unprocessed foods as much as possible. So, on a scale of processing, you've got like white sugar on one side that's highly, highly processed from the original beet or cane sugar. And then the other side, you have your whole grains. So, whether it's short grain brown rice or whether it's steel cut oats, for example, they sit on two opposite ends of the spectrum. You want to go as far towards the whole grain as much as possible and whole foods as much as possible. Carrots, potatoes, peas, all that kind of stuff. You want to try and get as many different colors as possible into your diet every single day. There was a study that came out that looked at the optimum number of fruits and vegetables per day. It was 800 grams. So this 5 a day mantra should actually be 10 a day. Sounds scary, but trying to get 3 portions of fruit and vegetables at each mealtime is what you want to aim for. Don't worry, I'm going to give you some practical tips at the end of this spiel. Quality fats, so nuts and seeds, as long as you're not allergic, try and get these in every single day. You want to try and get fiber, many different types of fiber as possible. So you can get that from whole grains. You can also get it from skin on squash, potatoes, lots of different beans and legumes, lentils. This is where you're going to get your fiber, supports your gut microbes. Your gut microbes will produce metabolites that nourish your gut cells, will balance inflammation, balance sugar, improve your mood. Your gut health is key to everything. It's been a staple within Ayurveda, a staple within traditional Chinese medicine, staple within Mayan medicine. Like, everyone's known about this. We're already sort of catching up when it comes to the science of these things. And like I said earlier, plant focused, not necessarily plant exclusive, but as plant focused as possible. How do you get all this in sort of every single day? It's hard, right? So I think if everyone can get their daily BBGs every day, you're on to a winner. What's BBGs? Beans. So if you can get like a handful of beans every single day, fantastic. Berries. So berries are a unique type of fruit. They contain polyphenols. Your gut loves them. There's evidence that it can improve your mental well-being as well, and your brain health, cognition. Try and get berries into your diet every single day. They can be frozen. Doesn't necessarily need to be in season. Greens. So BBG greens. Greens like Swiss chard, kale, rocket, other cruciferous vegetables. Try and get them in every single day, at least once, because these contain anti-inflammatory chemicals, cruciferous elements, that they're very, very good for your gut health as well. They absolutely love them. And then S is for seeds. So seeds and nuts, quality fats, full of minerals like zinc and iron and vitamin E, vitamins. These also contain specific types of chemicals that are anti-inflammatory as well. Try and tick off your BBGs every single day. Even if you can just do one for a week, try one BBGs just every day for a week, and then move up to the next letter, which whatever you're choosing is, and try and get it in daily. And I promise you, if you do BBGs for 30 days, you'll feel the difference.
Yeah, such good advice. Thank you for breaking that down for us. I am determined to give that a go. I'll ping you a message at the end of May to let you know how I've got on. Look, you'll know Rupy better than anyone. You've been a doctor in a highly intense, overworked setting. You're now a founder. Overworked, intense setting. And basically all of the people listening to this podcast will be probably a variety of that. You know, a lot of our listeners are aspiring or current founders, or they're working in the startup ecosystem as operators, and it's full on. And we know that sometimes health and diet goes out the window a bit when you're kind of working to these extremes, which I know it shouldn't be, but it does for some. So anybody that's listening to this going, I love what you're saying, Rupy, but I'm struggling with this. What advice would you give them to kind of get them to start eating better? And are there any other tips and points? You've given us so many already, but I just wanted to give a positive note before we get to our wrap-up questions for anyone that's kind of determined to improve on this side of things?
Yeah, I think like having confidence in yourself and utter belief in yourself and writing out a manifestation. I'm a real big fan of manifesting. Like, I know it sounds a bit woo, but I've had Dr. Tara Swart on the podcast before, and we've talked about the science behind it. She's a neuroscientist and a psychiatrist, and I respect her massively. I really feel like if you can get that in order, like things will happen, it will flow. And it's been the greatest privilege ever to be a founder, like the ability to curate and mold an organization, throughout the hardship, all the admin, all the BS that we have to do. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. There's such a minor part of it. I just think about like how much benefit we can give to people because we've got a real core mission. So honestly, I feel like I'm really privileged to be in this position. I don't feel the sort of hardship at all. I used to dwell on that. I don't anymore. And if I can give any sort of advice, semblance of advice, try and focus on the sort of big goal and it will guide you through everything else.
How do you balance prioritizing well-being, health and well-being and fitness with being a parent, running a business with massive ambitions? Like, how do you do that? Because I find it very difficult. I know a lot of people listening to this will find it very difficult, and we could benefit from your advice and wisdom on the topic.
I think it is criminal if you are balancing that many things and you have to give your energy to that many people to not put yourself first. Like, I'm not afraid to say I'm getting a babysitter because I'm going to go train for 2 hours. I think like you can't give the people what they need, your child, the people who work for you, everything, if you haven't taken care of yourself. And I actually think we should reframe it in our mind as like, if I'm not in a good place and I don't feel good and I'm not healthy, then what use am I to any of the other people? So it's actually, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't make time for it, and you're doing a disservice to all the other people around you.
I think it's a really important message. And I must say, like, for me, I know when I'm at my best. I'm playing sport, which is my passion since I was a child. And there are times in the JBM journey where I have just let that go. It was literally about 10 years. Once I broke my leg playing rugby, stopped playing rugby, and just focused on the business. And I didn't replace it. Yeah. And it's only 2 years ago, like 8 years on or whatever, I started playing football again. It's totally changed my life.
Right.
It's totally changed it. And I've been an amazing armchair critic of all sports. But I didn't enjoy the gym. I did a bit of boxing. I just found it, I didn't replicate the thing that I love, which was team-based sports.
Right.
And sometimes you just gotta sometimes remind yourself what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And I've been a happier person since, and I think a better leader, better husband.
Exactly.
And, I think it's the case.
But interesting you say there about it being team sports
that's my thing. I struggle in the gym.
Right.
I really struggle in the gym.
And I think it's for a lot of people, like, they struggle to find their thing that really motivates them. And so for you, it's probably about like the sport, but it's also like the camaraderie and the energy you get from other people and all of that stuff.
So true.
So I think like taking time to understand your thing that lifts you up is really important.
And for any founder that's like, right, I'm hearing what Lottie's saying, I'm going to put it into action. Like, what does that actually mean? Like week to week, day to day for you? Like, how do you balance these different things? Do you kind of get up early, go to the gym? Like, what's your sort of schedule for this sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I don't want to buy into the hustle culture. I know people hate it when I say this, but I do get up really early.
Me too. I'm an early bird.
I know you're not supposed to say that these days, but like, yeah, I get up really early. Mostly train in the morning, but also like on Monday night I went to the club for 2 hours, trained, had my sauna, did my ice bath, like relaxed, all of that stuff. So yeah, for me, it's like fitting it in where you can, but also just like making sure you schedule it. And like I said, not being afraid to be like, right, I'm getting a babysitter, or I'm going to call so-and-so because I need that time. Because I think, especially as women, we feel like we've got to be at home and we've got to be, giving to other people all of the time.
Very true.
But I'm not into that.
Oh, I wish I had the answer for everybody on that. It's really hard. Motivation comes in waves. Like, it's hard to be on it all the time. And I think, we try, and even with New Year's resolutions, like, it's very difficult to be on it all the time. And even Joe, he talks about this openly, like he's the fittest person I know. But there are times where he has trouble with motivation as well, and he's eating marmalade on toast at 10 at night and stuff. But I would just say, look, keep it. I mean, for me personally, it's keeping it really simple and just focusing on, like, we talk about sort of like little wins, like, drinking plenty of water, obviously exercising every day if you can. I think sleep is so important. Like, I've really come to realize that, if I do get enough sleep or more sleep, I make better food choices. I'm more likely to exercise. I've just got more energy to do all of these things that, that we need to do. So I think that, and we give ourselves a hard time, right? That's the problem with goals. When we stop, we then we can be quite hard on ourselves. I've been trying to get up at 6 a.m. To try and find a bit more time in the day to get my exercise done first thing. And I'm not a morning person, so this is a huge deal for me. But what I've come to realize is I need to be in bed and asleep by like 10:15, and then I can get up at 6 and I can do that. But if I don't get into bed by and it's later, if I get to bed at 10:30, 11, I now just don't try, because I'm setting myself up for failure. So I just go, do you know what? I didn't manage this today. I'll try again tomorrow. It's just about being kind to yourself. Obviously I'm a big believer, exercise is the key to everything. Like, I think energy, it gives us energy, it improves our mental health, it resets our stress. For me, it's a real coping mechanism for the demands of like running a business, for sure. It's my release. One of the big game changers for me, I've been doing these since the pandemic, really, but I call them walkie talkies. And basically, any meeting that I have, if I don't need a screen, I do them on the phone and I walk. So I might have 4 walkie talkies in a day, and I'm walking for like half an hour at a time, and I'm getting loads of steps in, I'm getting out, I'm getting fresh air. The meetings are really productive. If we could have done this podcast on a walkie-talkie, I would have done it. But I'd say trying it. That's a really nice way to like incorporate movement and fresh air and nature into your day whilst being productive.
Love that. Such a good tip. Thanks, Nikki. I want to talk a bit about building healthier relationships with food, because it is so important, I think, increasingly for us to make the right choices. But there's lots of noise. There's noise about quick fixes, which are often more harmful than good. So I'd love to hear from your experience. What does a healthy relationship with food actually look like? And what are some of the common mistakes you see people make?
So a healthy relationship with food is unique to you. It's providing your body with no deprivation, but equally just thinking, what can I add in every day? And enjoyment and satisfaction and fullness are things that people don't really know how to tap into. And I think people mistake fullness with satisfaction ratings after you've eaten all the time. And sadly, in the media, it's always about deprivation. It's always about what you can take out. It's always about the fad. And one big red flag, and I find it very frustrating because a lot of podcasts I love to listen to myself have scientists on that specialize, and I'm a big fan of these scientists in their specific research areas. But that doesn't mean that research should be applied to the general public in the way it is, because we are all unique. We're from different backgrounds. We have different financial restraints. We have our own relationships that we grow up with food. And one of the big problems we have in society today is that we have no diversity, and there's a huge spike of ultra processed foods. I think there was a stat where most of the food we consume comes from something like only 7 plants and 5 animal species. And we're making our whole diet off this tiny amount of diversity and variety. Whereas in the Western world, we have access to so much food, but we don't know how to cook. We're living on convenience. Bosses aren't giving people proper lunch times or encouraging them to have lunch away from their desk. Families are growing up without this education and knowledge. And that's why we have the stat you delivered at the beginning of the podcast with childhood obesity rates rising. And ultimately, I think people are so confused because they hear fasting, they hear keto, they hear people say moderation, which I do use, but actually moderation looks different to everybody because we all have a different view and perception of what that should be. Food is also a coping strategy. When we're stressed, some people go off it, some people go to it. The types of food you crave are often very different to the ones your body may need at that time. So it's hugely psychological, hugely environmental, and equally what you know. Your food world, what you grow up with.
I think we know that there isn't a one size fits all, which often it kind of feels the easy way to kind of deal with it, but there isn't when it comes to nutrition, and you discuss that in your book. What's your take on diets? Do they work? And I'm sure there are people listening to this that have been on them. And are there any rules that you absolutely live by when it comes to your health and well-being?
Yeah, so let's start with the diets conversation. If we took the word diet as black and white, what it actually means, which is the food we eat every day, then of course diets would work because you're tailoring food that suits your body in the energy requirements you need. However, if we're talking about diets in terms of the media and what's out there, we're talking about certain shakes and products that are labeled as healthy alternatives because they contain all the vitamins and minerals, or we're looking at meal replacements, fasting, skipping meals, protein being really high, calorie counting, calorie deficits. People are shouting things from the rooftops, but the real answer is that they only work short time for 99% of the people out there. Unless you're starting very overweight at a point where a diet will help you get the initial weight off, but then lifestyle changes have to kick in to keep that trajectory going, which is where nutrition's complicated. It's not just about following a meal plan. It's about your life and your attitude towards food and what's achievable for you. Can you even cook a meal at night? Do you have the time, or are you running up and down to the kids' bedrooms, or are you working night shifts? Are you a hospital, a surgeon, where you are in an operating theatre for hours on end? So the rules I abide by, and I'd like to not call them rules, but just kind of philosophies, is really, what can I add in today? And I try and say, look, I allow myself chocolate, and I often have it at the start of the day, actually, rather than the end of the day. I really enjoy having chocolate after breakfast. It's just my little thing. And I'm a believer that if you allow yourself something you enjoy, you're less likely to overeat on it. And it's that mindset that's the key to successful nutrition long term. There's no rules that you should have chocolate after dinner. Why can't you have it in the morning if it's what you fancy? You're then less likely to eat it for the rest of the day. It's shifting things on its head. Can I get more colour in today? Have I actually had any fruit? Maybe I'll have a snack later and I'll grab some fruit, or go and treat myself to something I enjoy. And I think that's such a healthy outlook on food, because then you start to naturally make better choices.
Such great advice. And as somebody that loves chocolate, I love the idea of a little bit of chocolate after breakfast. And maybe that will stop my post-dinner snacking, which has always been a challenge for me. I think a lot of the time, nutrition and fitness focus on the physical aspect, but we actually really should be focusing on the mental health benefits that come with eating right and moving our bodies. So what are some of the biggest benefits that you see for yourself, but also for your clients, when they start focusing on actually what it is they're eating?
Oh, it's life-changing. And we have data now, the SMILES trials, which is huge, one of the largest studies of its kind, that showed eating a Mediterranean-style diet is more effective than antidepressants or being on medication in some instances. Now, I'm not saying stop taking medication. If anyone's listening, always consult your GP, but diet can have a big impact on your mental health. It has an impact on our gut health if we get more fiber and color and plants in, which in turn sends signals to our brain, which creates our happy hormones. Serotonin, that happy hormone, is linked to melatonin, which is linked with our circadian rhythms and our sleep cycles. If you're looking at the healthy fats you consume, a lot of the cells in our brains, so 60% of our brain is made of fats. And we want to be getting avocados, nuts, olive oil, seeds in, and we're less likely to get dementia or Alzheimer's, because we know that the generation that have a higher ratio of these didn't have these elements to their diet. So there's also that area to think of. Our grandparents didn't have as many healthy fats in their diet. They had a lot of saturated fat from butter and animal produce. Cut down your animal produce, get more plants. I'm not saying give it up. Just try and increase the plant ratio more. You don't need to be having so much of what we're over consuming actually in society, which is not helpful for our heart health, our risk of diabetes, as well as our mental health. Skin, there's so many factors, I think, when it comes to nutrition that's much deeper than the aesthetic look, like you said, and how we feel every day. And equally, longevity in our joints and those sorts of things are all linked. And then there's the polyphenols, like all the dark coloured berries. They're heavily researched. I have the most amazing scientist on the podcast, Dr. Wolf Marks, and he looks at blueberries in America. And it's shown that blueberries can help improve our IQ. And it's incredible when we think these are these powerful phytochemicals which give them that purple or red rich colour. And a lot of people don't get those colours in their diet because they're just eating ultra-processed beige food. So it can help.
Thank you so much. I'm sure this is going to have the desired effect, even for myself. And this is a nice segue on to the next question, because a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are founders of startups, entrepreneurs, investors, work in high growth startups, just very demanding industries, and often lead very sort of super busy lives. Similarly, my sister's a nurse. We talked about parenthood. We're all so busy now. And one of the first things that I notice in my own life that kind of falls by the wayside is nutrition and exercise. I'll grab a quick snack. I'll stop going to the gym because I'm just so busy, or I tell myself that. And it's a very slippery slope. You suddenly get into those bad habits. So what advice do you have for people like me who know that I need to be prioritizing what I eat and fitness, but often busy schedules get in the way. How can we stop that cycle?
First of all busy people listening, you need to diarise or it won't go in. I'm the same. I need to put in my diary a 20-minute break just to eat. Otherwise, my day will run away with me. So please pop it into your diaries. Have a large bottle of water by your desk. I tend to have a large 1.5 litre. I want you to drink all of that water in a day as a minimum. Keep drinking. Toilet breaks are good things because you get up, you stretch, you do stretches, and then you're more productive anyway. Water also helps with concentration. Now, when it comes to preparing meals, have a kind of list of 5 things you rotate every day but change. Like always carry in your bag, if you can, a piece of fruit that you're mixing up every day, a bag of nuts or seeds and some oat biscuits or something. And then you can have a pot of hummus in your fridge at work if that's available to you, or some nut butter in a sachet in your bag, and just little things that you can have on the go. If you're not able to grab a meal, at least you're not going hungry, which will keep you more productive and means you're getting those extra vitamins and minerals in. But really getting organized helps. And I know it's the last thing you want to do is cook in the evenings, but you can buy really good options in the supermarkets now, in some of the aisles particularly, that are really balanced with lots of carbohydrates, proteins, vegetables, fats, and these amazing bulky salads and sandwiches and wraps. So sandwiches, be wary of the filling. There's often hardly any filling of nutrition in it when you're buying a sandwich and you're just basically eating bread and mayo. The choices you make can really make a difference every day.
In this big shift towards plant-based diets. So I'd love your take on that shift, and whether you've cut meat out altogether or you're trying to reduce your consumption. What advice do you have for anyone that's listening to this that wants to make more sustainable food choices?
So to anyone listening, understand plant-based does not mean vegan. They're two interchangeable, they're mixed up terms. Plant-based just means reducing your animal produce, which actually I think is what everyone should be doing for their health. The research is there. We know that people don't get enough fibre in this country. Fibre comes in plant foods. Fibre is involved in reduced cardiovascular disease, reduced diabetes, reduced hypertension, reduced everything. And it's ironic that in the Western countries, we have poor gut health compared to underdeveloped countries where they don't get the access to food, yet their guts are thriving because they're eating more plant-type food. And I'm sure they'd wish they had the access to all the produce we have here. So the two terms are very different. I think veganism is a very ethical lifestyle choice, which if you can do it healthily, but you do need supplementation of things like B12, iodine, selenium, calcium, iron, those types of things. But going plant-based, proven. The Lancet journal came out with the Eat Lancet research, which did show impact on greenhouse gas emissions being reduced for the environment. Also just the array of health benefits. So it means eating around 70 grams of red meat as a portion a week instead of however many, some people are probably having it daily. It means really cutting down the amount of cheese and especially things like cow's milk that you're consuming. You don't have to give these things up. Please just be mindful of the luxury we have in this country and the access to food that I think we all take for granted. So it's a good move to be plant-based. It is my honest professional opinion as well as my personal opinion.
Very good to know. Thank you. We've obviously talked a lot about from an adult's perspective. Some of the most shocking data out there suggests that 1 in 10 children are obese by the time they turn 5. That gets to 23% by the age of 11. And as a parent to a 7-year-old daughter myself, this is like terrifying stats. So I'd love your advice and insights on how any parents listening to this can help their children, again, build better relationships with food.
I think actually more worrying, I think it's 1 in 3 children are now overweight or obese. So the stats are narrowing hugely at the moment in this country. And I think the advice would really be that it's really, really difficult because it stems down from those first 12 months in the early days and under the age of 2. So we have research called the first 1,000 days. That's when your child's brain develops the most. You predispose them to their health in later years. And that's when the nutrition window is vital. And you want to be getting the amount right. There's no need for ultra-processed foods, lots of sugar and salt those early years. And what we see is a lack of interest in activity, of course. You know, there's more gaming, there's more TV, there's more screens, more sedentary activities. But actually, I would say the biggest culprit is our diets. And often it's also nutrition provided at schools, but it does start at home. So it's access to affordable food. And this is a huge question because there's no blame that should go on a parent wanting to do their best for their child or on a school. The government do need, in my opinion, to step up They need to regulate these manufacturers, regulate produce sold at children. I work for a baby food brand, and I'm disgusted when I look at the shop shelves of what other brands are putting out there for their children to consume, the amount of snacks in the aisle targeted at kids that are appealing. So it's a depressing answer because I don't have the answer for you, James. I think the answer is education. It's helping parents provide healthy food for kids. And that's got to come from a government level if in some areas the access is not there.
Totally agree. I really hope we see big changes on this because it's our children's future is just so important, and this feels like something that could be easily achieved with some intervention from the top. My final question before we get to the wrap up questions is just around, there is going to be people listening to this that will think, well, I really want to do this, but it's a cost of living crisis and food is expensive and it's really hard to, sometimes the cheapest options are the unhealthiest. Any final bits of advice for anyone that's struggling with that at the moment around how they can make healthier choices without breaking the bank?
Again, it's education, how you see or how you know how to cook or build a meal. Because if you're using cans of food, then it's not the case. Or if you're using your frozen aisle, it's not the case. Frozen veg and fruit is more nutritious than the ones on the shop shelf because they don't lose that antioxidant potential of exposure to oxygen over time or transport once they're picked. Because once these vegetables and fruit are prepared and picked, they're frozen instantly, which retains the nutrition. And that's going to save you so much money because you can keep using those items across the course of the week. But then we've got the cooking skills that come into it. It's knowing that, I can just put frozen berries on my porridge that morning. Oats are really affordable. If you can get into stuff like that, you can use a whole pack of oats, like a kilo pack, and it will last you. Buy own brand. You don't need to buy the branded varieties. Own brand is exactly the same, supermarket owned, compared to big brands. Cans of food get a bad rep. Actually, they're great if they're preserved in water, not in syrups and things for fruit. But beans and pulses, if we cut down the animal produce we're consuming, you will save tons of money. Meat is expensive. You don't need it if you're eating loads of beans and pulses. Fish, we do need a little bit of if you consume it for health benefits in your diet. Again, you can buy frozen fillet. We've got a big cost of living crisis. We've also got the overconsumption of expensive items crisis. We shouldn't be living like this. Meat used to be viewed as a rich nutrient source we only needed once or twice a week back in the day. Suddenly it's become something we're consuming 3-4 times a day. Have it and look forward to it at the weekend and try and get creative in the kitchen with the more affordable items during the week.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I really hope that you found it useful and inspiring. If we have left any questions unanswered, or if you have any feedback or guest recommendations for future series, then please make sure you get in touch on info@jbmc.co.uk. I often get asked by listeners how you can help us spread the word about 40 Minute Mentor. There are 2 simple ways you can help. Firstly, share this episode on your preferred social media platform, and LinkedIn is probably where I'm most likely to see it. And you can also leave us a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Every share on social media and review left on the podcast platforms really helps us to get 40 Minute Mentor in front of new audiences and share the power of mentorship even further. Thank you so much for your ongoing support, and I look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday for even more pocket-sized mentorship.